She bought coffee for a stranger in uniform, never knowing he was the lost heir to a billion-dollar empire. And in that single moment of kindness, she changed both their lives forever. This is their story. Before we begin, if you love stories about unexpected love, second chances, and the power of one small act of kindness, hit that subscribe button right now. Stay with me until the very end, because this story will surprise you in ways you never saw coming. And drop a comment letting me know what city you're watching from. I love knowing how far these stories travel. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. The rain fell in silver threads outside the small coffee shop near the bus depot, turning the morning into something between dream and reality. Inside, the air smelled of roasted beans and cinnamon, a warmth that cut straight through the November chill. Maya Brooks pushed through the glass door, her nursing scrubs damp at the shoulders, blonde hair escaping from a messy bun. At 24, she looked both younger and older than her years. Younger in the softness of her face, older in the shadows beneath her eyes from another overnight shift that had stretched her too thin. She needed coffee. Strong, black, unforgiving, just enough to get her home to her little brother before she collapsed. The line was short. Maya glanced behind her out of habit, the way you do when you're used to watching your back. That's when she saw him. He stood there like a ghost, trying to remember how to be human. Tall, broad across the shoulders, but hunched in a way that made him seem smaller, as if the weight of the sky itself had been pressing down on him for far too long. His military jacket had seen better years, the fabric worn thin at the elbows, patches faded beyond recognition. His jawline was sharp beneath a day's worth of stubble. And his eyes, they were the color of storm clouds gathering over the ocean, restless and haunted. She watched as an elderly man ahead of him struggled to reach for a pastry on the top shelf. The soldier moved without thinking, his hand steady as he retrieved it and placed it gently in the old man's trembling fingers. A small smile touched his lips, barely there, but real. Maya felt something shift in her chest. When it was the soldier's turn, she saw him pull out his wallet. He thumbed through it slowly, carefully, like someone counting every last hope. 3 crumpled bills, a handful of change. Enough for coffee. Maybe. But not much else. Maya stepped up to the counter. 1 small dark roast, she said. Then, without looking back, she added quietly, and whatever he's having, it's on me. The barista blinked, confused, then nodded. Behind her, the soldier froze. You don't have to do that, he said, his voice rough, like gravel under rain. Maya turned, meeting those stormy eyes. For a heartbeat, neither of them spoke. The world outside kept moving, rain tapping against the windows, cars passing by in blurs of red and white. But inside that coffee shop, time slowed. I know I don't have to, she said softly, but I want to. His throat worked. I'll pay you back. She shook her head, a small, tired smile touching her lips. Just pass it on. He opened his mouth to say more, but the words wouldn't come. His chest tightened. It was just coffee. $5. A simple gesture. But the way she'd said it, like kindness was the most natural thing in the world, like he was worth it, hit him somewhere deep he'd forgotten existed. Maya took her coffee and walked toward the door, the little bell above it chiming softly. She disappeared into the silver mist beyond the glass. And he stood there, coffee in hand, wondering what kind of person did that. What kind of person looked at a broken soldier and saw someone worth saving? The kind the world needs more of, the barista said quietly, handing him his cup. Outside, the rain continued to fall, and for the first time in months, maybe years, Ethan Cole felt something other than numb. It wasn't the coffee warming his hands. It was the look in her eyes, the feeling that maybe, just maybe, the world hadn't given up on him yet. Maya unlocked the apartment door with practiced silence, careful not to wake her little brother. The hallway smelled like burnt toast and old paint. Their unit was on the 3rd floor of a building where the elevator had been broken for 2 years, and nobody cared enough to fix it. Inside, the space was small but clean, 2 cramped bedrooms, a kitchen with a flickering light, and a living room scattered with Lego robots, sketchbooks, and a laptop that had seen better days. This was Owen's world, her 12-year-old genius of a brother who dreamed in code and built futures out of spare parts. "Ray?" A sleepy voice called from the hallway. Owen appeared, rubbing his eyes, brown hair sticking up in every direction, tablet clutched to his chest like a lifeline. "You're home," he whispered. "Always," she said, pulling him into a hug. "Go back to bed, buddy. Big day tomorrow." "Did you get my yogurt? The raspberry kind?" Maya hesitated. The kind that cost $3 she didn't have. "Tomorrow," she promised, forcing a smile. "I swear." She watched him shuffle back to his room, guilt gnawing at her insides. The shifts barely covered rent. Groceries came in waves of whatever was on sale. Textbooks for nursing school were bought secondhand or borrowed. Some weeks, she stretched ramen packets across 3 days and called it a meal plan. And still, she smiled. For Owen, for the memory of their parents. Their mother had died when Maya was 16. Cancer, caught too late, fought too hard. Their father, Sergeant James Brooks, had fallen in Afghanistan less than a year later. "Died a hero," they'd said. The medals were in a drawer Maya never opened. She'd been 17, suddenly responsible for an infant and a mountain of bills. Now, at 24, she was halfway through nursing school, working nights at the hospital, weekends at a diner, and any spare hour helping elderly neighbors with groceries just to make an extra $20. Every hour was accounted for. Every dollar already spent before she earned it. Maya collapsed onto the couch, eyes fluttering shut. Just for a moment. Just to breathe. Across the city, Ethan Cole sat on the edge of a sagging motel bed that smelled like bleach and regret. The neon sign outside his window flickered in, stuttering pulses of blue and red, casting shadows across the room like ghosts. On the table lay a manila envelope. Inside were papers that had arrived 3 days ago from the VA. Adoption records, hospital documents, a birth certificate with his name, Ethan James Cole, but no mother listed. Just a clinic logo in the corner. Street, Margaret's Women's Health Center. His hands trembled as he stared at them. 8 years. He'd spent 8 years in a place where days blurred into smoke, dirt, and silence. Captured during a mission gone wrong. Presumed dead. He'd clawed his way back from hell itself, only to find that the world had moved on without him. Family? He had none. Friends? He'd kept them at arm's length. Home? He'd never had one. And then, just yesterday, the VA caseworker had called. "We thought you'd want to know," she'd said. "There may be someone looking for you, but no name, no letter, no hand reaching out." Ethan stood, running a hand through his short hair, the nightmares still fresh behind his eyes. Gunfire, screams, the metallic taste of fear. They came every night, dragging him back to the dark. But today, something was different. Today, he couldn't stop thinking about the girl in the coffee shop. Maya. She'd given him coffee, not out of pity, not because she knew his name or his story or the scars he carried. Just because. 2 lives. 2 corners of the same city. One building a future from ruins. The other lost in shadows, searching for something, anything, that might make him feel real again. And though they'd met only once, that morning had shifted something. Because in a world where most people looked away, she had looked right at him and smiled. The night was quiet at St. Mary's Hospital, the kind of eerie calm that made Maya uneasy. She sat behind the front desk, drowning in paperwork, eyes heavy from back-to-back shifts. A loose strand of blonde hair kept falling into her face. She pushed it back and sipped lukewarm coffee from a chipped mug. The front door buzzed. A man stumbled in, mid-40s, reeking of alcohol, words slurring together. He leaned against the counter, eyes glassy and unfocused. "Hey there, pretty girl," he slurred. "You got a phone? 'Cause my heart just stopped when I saw you." Maya forced a polite smile, alarm bells ringing in her head. "Sir, this is a hospital. Do you need medical attention?" He leaned closer, voice dropping to something greasy and low. Only thing I need is your number, sweetheart. Maya stood, backing away. I'm going to call security if you don't leave. The man reached over the counter, his fingers brushing her wrist. Let her go. The voice came from the entrance, low and steady, carrying a weight that sobered the room instantly. Maya's eyes darted to the door. Ethan stood there, half in shadow, still wearing that worn army jacket. He crossed the floor in 3 calm, deliberate steps. The drunk turned, confused. Ethan didn't raise his fists. Didn't need to. He just stared, quiet and immovable as a wall, and the drunk man stumbled backward, mumbling something incoherent before staggering toward the exit. The door swung shut. Silence. Maya exhaled, her hands still shaking. Thank you, she whispered. Ethan nodded once. You okay? Yeah. She studied him, recognition dawning slowly. Wait, coffee shop guy? His lips twitched. Almost a smile. Yeah, coffee shop guy. What are you doing here? Couldn't sleep, he said simply. Walked past. Saw him through the window. He paused. Figured I'd pass it on. Her breath caught. Those words. Her words. I'm Maya, by the way. Ethan. For a moment, they just stood there. 2 strangers who'd crossed paths twice now, both holding on to kindness like a lifeline. Can I buy you a coffee? She asked. To say thanks? Ethan hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, I'd like that. And just like that, the story shifted. What had begun with a $5 gesture became something neither of them expected. Something that would unravel both their lives in ways they couldn't yet imagine. 3 months later, Ethan Cole had become a fixture in Maya's small, chaotic world. He fixed the broken outlet in her kitchen, taught Owen how to build a better robot, walked her home after late shifts, hands in his pockets, eyes always scanning the streets like old instincts died hard. He didn't talk much about the war, about the years he'd lost. But sometimes, late at night when Owen was asleep and the city hummed softly outside, Ethan would sit on her couch, and the words would come. Slow, painful, real. Maya listened. Never pushed. Just listened. And somewhere in those quiet nights, she fell in love with him. Not the hero, not the soldier, just the man who made her brother laugh and looked at her like she was the only light in a dark world. But Ethan carried secrets. Secrets that weighed heavier than any combat gear. The envelope from the VA had led him to a lawyer, and the lawyer had led him to a name. Richard Welling, founder of Welling Energy, one of the largest conglomerates in the country. A man who'd been searching for a son he'd never met. A son who'd been given up for adoption 32 years ago. Ethan was that son. He was the missing heir to a billion-dollar empire. And he hadn't told Maya. Because how do you tell the woman you love that you've been lying to her? That every moment you spent in her tiny apartment, every time you pretended to be just another lost veteran scraping by, you were hiding a truth that could change everything? The guilt ate at him. But the fear of losing her kept him silent. Until the day the news broke. Maya was at the hospital when her phone exploded with notifications, messages, calls, links to articles with headlines that made her blood run cold. Missing heir found. Ethan Cole revealed, as son of billionaire Richard Welling. Her hands shook as she clicked the first link. There was his face, Ethan's face, in a tailored suit, standing beside a man with silver hair and sharp eyes. The article detailed everything: the adoption, the military service, the years presumed dead, and now, the return. Maya felt the ground tilt beneath her. She scrolled through the photos, saw him at galas she'd only seen in magazines, saw quotes from lawyers, board members, people who spoke about him like he was a chess piece in a billion-dollar game. And then she saw the date. 3 weeks ago. He'd known for 3 weeks, and he hadn't told her. Her chest tightened. Tears blurred her vision. She stood in the middle of the hospital hallway, people rushing past, the world moving around her, while she stood frozen. Her phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. Maya, please. Let me explain. She didn't respond. Couldn't. The betrayal cut too deep. That night, she sat on the park bench where they'd shared their first real conversation months ago. The bench where he'd told her he didn't know where he belonged. The bench where she'd held his hand and said, "You belong here. With us." She'd been so sure. So stupidly, naively sure. A piece of paper was tucked under the bench slat, folded carefully, her name written on the outside in his handwriting. Maya, I was a coward. I should have told you the moment I found out, but I was scared. Scared that if you knew, everything would change. That you'd see the money, the name, the empire, and not me. The guy who didn't know how to be anything but a soldier. The guy who didn't deserve you but couldn't stay away. You saw me when I was invisible. You gave me a home when I had none, and I repaid you with silence. I'm sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to know that every moment with you was real. The only real thing in my life. I love you, Maya. I just needed time to believe I deserved it. No signature. None was needed. Maya sat there, holding the letter against her chest, tears streaming down her face. She felt betrayed, hurt, angry, but underneath it all, she felt something else. Something stubborn and impossible to ignore. She'd loved the man in the faded jacket. The man who fixed her outlet and made Owen laugh. That man wasn't a lie. He was part of Ethan, too. Maybe the truest part. As the wind picked up around her, Maya whispered into the night, "You should have told me." She folded the note carefully and stood. The bench stayed empty behind her, but somewhere in her heart, a quiet hope remained. Maybe he'd come back. And this time, with the truth. The conference room inside Welling Energy headquarters was a cathedral of glass and ambition. Media crews scrambled to adjust cameras and microphones, voices blending into a rising wave of anticipation. Every major outlet was there. The return of the heir had become national news. At the front stood a long table draped in white linen. Lawyers, board members, executives in dark suits. But one chair remained empty, the one at the center. Then the doors opened. Ethan Cole walked in, dressed in a simple navy suit, posture upright but not stiff. Every step was both a challenge and a triumph. Whispers rippled through the room as he approached the microphone. He didn't sit, just cleared his throat. The cameras went silent. "Good morning," Ethan began, his voice calm but carrying. "I know most of you are here expecting statements about fortune, succession, and what this means for the Welling Energy empire." He paused, scanning the crowd, and then his eyes found her. In the back row, near the exit, stood Maya, pale blue blouse, jeans, blonde hair loose around her shoulders. Her eyes locked on his, wide and uncertain. Ethan smiled faintly. "But I'm not here to talk about fortune," he continued. "I'm here because not too long ago, I was just another man in a faded uniform. I had no name that mattered, no legacy I believed in, no family I knew. I was tired, angry, lost." The room held its breath. And then someone bought me a coffee. Confusion flickered across the reporters' faces. She didn't know my name, didn't ask for one. She just paid for a stranger's drink and told him to pass it on. He paused. That moment didn't just warm me. It shook something awake. I hadn't been seen as a person in a long time, but she saw me. He looked directly at Maya. "Her name is Rachel Carter." The cameras swiveled instantly, finding her in the back. She froze, eyes wide. Ethan stepped down from the stage and walked toward her, past stunned executives and whispering reporters. Someone handed him a microphone. He took it, stopping a few feet from where she stood. "I came here today," he said, softer now, "because I realized this company, this name, this money, it means nothing unless I know who I am without it." He took another step closer. "You reminded me I was still human, that I could laugh, that I could fix a broken outlet, and be thanked like I mattered, that maybe I did." Cameras flashed. "I found my blood," he said, eyes locked on hers. "But you found me." A murmur spread through the room. Not gossip, not scandal, just awe. Maya stepped forward, trembling. "You disappeared," she whispered. "I did," he replied. "Because I was scared that if I stayed, I'd lose you the moment you saw the truth. But the truth is, you saw me before I even knew who I was." Reporters scrambled to catch every word, but Ethan turned to them one last time. "She gave me coffee. I want to give the world better because of her." Then, without waiting for another question, Ethan took Maya's hand and walked with her out of the spotlight. Behind them, the crowd didn't cheer, but the air had changed. Something real had been said. Something human, in a world of headlines and stock prices. And in that quiet exit, hand in hand, a new kind of legacy began. 1 year later, the doors to the Brooks Community Wellness Center opened with the gentle chime of a brass bell. The building, though modest, radiated warmth, cream-colored walls, flower boxes beneath the windows, and a sign carved in wood that read, "In honor of Sergeant James Brooks." Inside, Maya stood by the reception desk in a soft green blouse, handing out flyers to new patients. The center, funded by the Cole Foundation, offered free care for low-income families, walk-in clinics for veterans, and mental health support for trauma survivors. Every room had sunlight. Every nurse on staff had once dreamed of helping, and now had the means to do so. At the heart of it all stood Maya. Ethan, meanwhile, had become something of a legend. The heir who refused the empire. The soldier who traded mansions for missions. He'd quietly given away nearly 80% of his inherited wealth, directing it to build shelters, schools, and transitional homes for veterans and their families. He refused board seats, titles, or applause. "I don't want control," he'd told one journalist. "I want change." And change came. That fall, construction crews laid the final bricks of a neighborhood called Anchor Grove, a place where no veteran would sleep on the street again. Wide porches, open kitchens, gardens between every house. Maya and Owen were invited to the ribbon cutting, but as they arrived, Ethan pulled her aside toward one of the porches where a single swing hung gently in the breeze. "I wanted you to see this one first," he said. She turned to him, eyes bright. "You did all this?" "No," he replied. "We did." A breeze lifted her hair as he reached into his coat pocket. But instead of a ring box, he pulled out a small paper cup, the same kind from the coffee shop long ago. Inside was a velvet pouch. Maya laughed, tears already forming. "You kept the cup?" "I kept everything," Ethan said, dropping to one knee beneath the porch's shade. "You gave me coffee, Maya. But more than that, you gave me a place to belong. You gave me peace. You gave me home." He opened the pouch to reveal a simple gold band. "I'd like to give you forever." She nodded, voice caught in her throat. "Yes. Always. Yes." From behind them, Owen whispered, "You better kiss her, man. I need this ending for my video." Ethan stood, scooped Maya into his arms, and kissed her as the sun dipped low behind the houses they'd helped build. Later that night, Owen uploaded a short clip. Simple. A porch swing. A paper cup. A kiss. And a quiet title across the screen. From Caffeine to Commitment. Within hours, it spread across the internet. Not because it was flashy, but because it was real. One cup of coffee. One small act of kindness. And now, one home. One family. One future rebuilt together. Because sometimes, the smallest gestures carry the greatest weight. And sometimes, love finds you in the most unexpected places, dressed in a faded uniform, holding a crumpled $5 bill, just waiting for someone to see them. And Maya saw him. She always had.